Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Club Lorcana podcast. This is number 45. I am one of your hosts, Jeremy Bertrioni. With me, as always,
ZAN Syed.
ZAN Syed is here, and then we also have next to us almost a friend, actually all the way a friend, graduated. We have Ryan Walker. Ryan, say hi to everybody.
How's it going, everybody?
You should be following this guy. And for those of you that are new to the podcast, I kind of like to start every time with a snapshot of the metagame. This is for players that just want to get right to the meat and potatoes of the issue. What am I playing at the next tournament? So, Zan, how should we tackle this monster metagame? It feels like it's the most wide open that I've ever seen Lorcana. Almost every strategy has a shot. Do you want to just talk about the winners of last weekend?
Yeah, let's do it. What are the winners?
Okay, so we had a big tournament in Sweden that red-blue won with a list that had 4 McDuck Manors, 4 A Pirate's Life. It's pretty much really similar to what you would call like a DKP-style red-blue list. It did have Sisu.
Okay. Yep.
DKP list.
That's DKP list.
Okay, great. And then we had in Canada, Sailor took it down with Green Steel.
Yep.
A lot of Lorcana's sort of player base is pro player base is divided on people that are still going out and playing in tournaments and people that are waiting at home for the official ones. And Sailor went out this weekend. He got it done with Green Steel. We had the Ravensburger event in Germany. You might have heard about this on Twitter, or you might have thought that it was like a big puzzle building competition, but it actually was a Lorcana tournament. And Chernadog took it down this time. Yellow-green Chernadog kind of cheesed out a win, an extremely small percentage of the metagame, but I mean, the player Chernadog. How about them dogs, right? Yeah. And then, of course, we had the Lucky Llama event in Arkansas, and I didn't go or watch any coverage. Zan, do you know what happened with that one?
Yeah, the Lucky Llama Showdown. Yeah, I took it down.
You won!
Yep, I won. I went kind of last minute, and I took it down with Jafar Wheel.
And I think this tournament's going to go down in history for 2 things. 1, Zan, call shot, Babe Ruth, broke the format, home run over there. And number 2, commentator JDZ Quest. I don't know if you saw this, if you were there for this, but he one-bited an Uncrustables on stream.
True.
Yeah,
Took it
that
down.
was awesome.
It was pretty much the most insane thing I've ever seen. And I do want to say, coming from Magic, I'm pretty familiar with like guerrilla commentary.
Yep.
We have a hero of mine, personal hero of mine, Anurag Das, does Magic the Gathering streams out of his backpack that are top tier. They like rival what Wizards themselves are doing.
Yep.
So this was another Guerrilla stream. JDZ basically solo. I mean, he had some help with some excellent other commentators, but he was a star of that show, and it was one of the best I'd ever seen. Congrats to that guy. That was an awesome tournament to watch.
Yeah. No, he was wonderful. So was Dan.
So was Dan. Absolutely, I agree with that. But JDZ was like, it was like watching a star in the making.
Oh my God. Yeah, I did an interview with him, and I was like, you're the best interviewer I've ever worked with.
He's been on the grind lately. I mean, he's been doing the ICL streams. He's been doing some LCC streams. So shout out to him for putting in the hours.
I'm a fan as of this weekend. I was watching it. I watched him for a couple hours, and I was like, most entertained I've been in a long time. He even had the unenviable position of having to fill time because they didn't have like backup matches. So sometimes he just had 45 minutes, and he was like, I'm going. I don't care. We're streaming, buddy. And they stream. Just raw, talking about nothing stream. Speaking of talking about nothing, you broke the format again.
Yep. That was cool.
How'd it go? So how'd you get the idea? When did you know it was broken? Do the story.
Yeah. The whole story is I'm losing a lot. I'm losing a crap ton. I'm losing more than normal. So I'm losing a lot, and I feel pretty bad. So I'm like reaching into my bag of tricks, and I'm like, okay, what's a cool card? What's a cool card in my trade binder that could be good? And that's the lamp. So I'm playing Blurple items, and I'm like, oh, let me slot in this lamp. Let me try to find, and there's a good genie, but let me try to find a good Jafar. There really isn't a good Jafar, but I'll just forcefully play some Jafars. The item is just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. The item it's just winning me games by itself. I'm like, what is happening? Why is this card so good? So I'm experiencing that, and but I'm still losing. I'm actually losing to regular Blurple. Just regular Blurple.
Blurple had a weekend this weekend. I mean, it had copies in all the top 8s that we mentioned before. It had multiple copies super late into the Lucky Llama. Blurple's probably going to be my like set championships pet deck.
I would hold on that.
Okay.
I would hold on that. So,
I mean, on the surface, it's interesting, right? I mean, blue cards, you're ramping. Purple cards, you're drawing. You're ramping and you're drawing.
yeah.
A lot of things can go right when you're doing those two things.
Well, it artificially creates a Diablo too, right? You play a Bell on turn 1, and then you play Friends on turn 2. So day 1 after the banning happened, I was like, oh, I'm gonna play Blurple.
Yep.
But in my mind, I thought, oh, this Blurple is kind of obvious, right? Because they kept Popsicle around. So Bell still has synergy, and you just have to think about what's the best song that can be sung. It's Friends.
I got friends on the other side.
And so I'm like thinking, okay, I want to play Blurple. I'm playing a bunch of Blurple. I'm winning. But I'm like, people already love Blurple. People are going to pick it up. Fast forward, Blurple is just being played a lot. And I'm playing red, purple, and I'm playing blue, red, and Blurple's beating me. So I'm like, how can I evolve Blurple? So maybe I make Blurple items and it can beat Blurple. And it's not. And I'm like, so, that's how I was like, okay, I can bounce a genie if I have a genie with this lamp and then create a micro advantage. And what would be the shell that would fit into? And that was purple steel. Then I was like, okay, if I'm playing Jafars, then I should play the shift Jafar and make it all the way down to wheel. So I only have to play to 13. And you and I both know I've played enough Infect. If I have to get to a lower total, that's easy. Like I have to get a little bit more than half, So I just play a normal game plan, and then I just randomly shift Jafar and wheel, and I just win the game.
Nice.
Right? And that's awesome. But why was this deck found? Was because nothing was beating Blurple. And I realized at the top elo of Lorcanito that Blurple was all just sitting there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to play 3 rounds of this tournament, and I'm only going to play against Blurple. So let's talk about what I played against in this tournament. Round 1, Blurple. Round 2, Green Steel, my exact list. Round 3, Red Purple Evasives. Round 4, Blue Red. Round 5, Purple Steel, the guy I played in top 64 of Seattle. Purple Steel Aggro. Round 6 and 7, draw. Go to top 16. Round 1 of top 16, Blurple. Round 2 of top 8, top 8, it's Blurple again. And then top 4, Blurple again. So
wow.
Then I finally get to the finals, and I play against Green Purple. And so I 2-0'd Blurple 3 out of the 4 times. And the one time I lost, I felt like the one time I lost a game, I felt like I got a little unlucky. And my opponent was the best Blurple player out of all the Blurple players. So do I want to be in the rat race of the Blurple stuff? I don't. I don't want to be there, because what I realized is it's even more of a luck fest than the red purple mirrors, right? If you're the one who doesn't have ramp on 2, you lose. Were you better for having ramp on 2?
Yes. You knew how to alter.
No, you altered and you missed.
Dang.
You lost.
It's just not even fair, bro.
Right? And so Blurple was the reason why I won this tournament. I knew that it would float to the top. It would beat majority of the other decks, and that I would get to beat it. If Blurple wasn't it, I thought Red Purple was the other deck. And I did play against Red Purple once, and there were a lot of Red Purples in top 16. And, it was an even easier matchup than Blurple, because on turn 4, if I'm on the play as Purple Steel, how do you remove a Jafar as a Red Purple player?
You got a Wrath ahead of schedule. The other thing is, if you played it on turn 4, I'm pretty much done. But if you played it super later, then I could have had a Maui Shark in play, and I could Elsa it down.
Exactly. What I'm saying is, if I play it on turn 4, there's no way to interact with that.
Agreed.
And that means I'm gonna whole new world. Okay, now it's your turn 5, and I have a shifted Jafar that just saying whole new world. How do you get rid of my Jafar now?
Dragonfire, one of.
Exactly. Right? Or you have to have an evasive threat plus a crab. And so what does that mean? If I get done tap with this thing and I've already gained 7 off of it, what if I just whole new world again, or just friends or lamp? You know what I mean?
Play 2 lamps and pop them.
Exactly. So you're gonna finish the game. So you just get to win the game for free a bunch of times against Amethyst decks. So, one of the comments that I kept getting was, did you play against any Amber Steel? No, I didn't play against Amber Steel because it lost so early. There were like 2 copies that made it into top 16, and then 1 copy that made it all the way to top 4. But the problem with the deck is it loses to itself, right? Because its consistency factor is the same as when it was in set 3. What cards have they printed that make the deck find whole new world more often? Nothing, right?
Nothing. Yeah, the whiff's still bad, that's for sure. And I think they've gone down on song count since set 3. I mean, I remember playing 20 plus songs, and I consistently see decks that are below that number.
What are they gonna do? They haven't gotten another aerial. If they got another aerial, we'd be having a different conversation, right? So Amber Steel loses to itself, and that was the story in my LCC against Kurt.
I had a couple of predictions going into the weekend. I want to talk about the LCC match, but first I wanted to talk about my predictions going into the weekend, just because I got really close. Mm-hmm. So I made a 5-way parlay that I said on Twitter that if it hits, I get $40K. All right, here are my points. Point number 1, Purple Steel wins the Llama event in Arkansas. Boom, we're already on our way.
Was I going there?
Point number 3, yes.
And when you made this bet, was I going there?
Yes.
With Purple Steel?
Whatever.
Okay.
There's no rule against knowing who. I bet on ZAN. Okay, whatever.
No, that's awesome.
Number 2, Red Purple gets 4 copies in between both top 8s of the Ravensburg event in Arkansas. So I hit on that also. Number 3, Kindle Burdette has a 55% game win percentage of better. Basically, I bet on Kindle Burdette coming back because Purple Red is back.
It's back.
Yeah.
Number 4, Steel is the most played color all weekend. I did end up hitting on this by a hair, but this is almost always true because a lot of people have purple steel decks, and amber steel is really popular. Green steel makes up for it or whatever. That's like almost a free space on a 5-way parlay in Lorcana. And then number 5, the one that I missed on, the one that I bricked on to win $40K, Blue Red wins the Ravensburger event. I don't think I would have got that one in a million years.
I mean, I think Kendall and DKP, my teammates, they both said that they messed up, and so
against Chernadogs.
So
left the door open.
Maybe if they had played perfectly, that Chernadogs would not have won.
Interesting. Let's talk about Chernadogs for a second, right? I mean, that deck, it obviously popped up right when this new set came out. Everybody was all about the lady and the tramp cards. Mm-hmm. Chernadog, obviously easy to get out when you draw 5, discard 5. Does that deck pick up some steam now after getting a big win in Ravensburger?
Oh, definitely.
And then more importantly, how do you think your Jafar wheel matchup goes against them dogs, as we say in Georgia?
I mean, I need to play more, and I need to see how much the top elo is respecting the deck. This is kind of the first time we're seeing like an aggro deck just win out of the blue, right? And it happened in other games much more often, just because the theory of if you are presenting something to your like if your opponent has to answer what you're doing, you will have a higher win percentage from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if you're like presenting lethal over and over again and your opponent has to answer it, even if your deck is slightly worse, you're gonna still win more games. And so Chernadogs. I mean, I think that aggro decks in every other game just do this on a normal basis, and this being the first time that's it's happening in Lorcana, I think that's healthy for the game. But I think that people just slipped up. I think that if I was playing against it, I would I think I would be fine as long as I didn't lose the die roll. But if I lost the die roll, then I could potentially lose. Does purple steel beat it? It has more than enough tools to beat aggro decks.
Yep, totally agree. Yeah, I played a little bit on the ladder on Friday, Saturday when we already knew you were taking the deck. So I got to kind of get on Lorcanito with it a little bit before like the public started. Mm-hmm. So I had some games against aggro and things like that. It very play draw dependent. But when you're talking about Sherna Dogs, it feels a little different to me. When you're talking about yellow, purple, hyper aggro, play daisies, play cards, turn them sideways.
Yep.
There's a little bit of combo-ness to this green yellow deck, right? I mean, I saw this guy that won it in Ravensburger. He would get out daisies, Big Johns, and he wouldn't turn anything sideways until he got to pull off his tramp combo to get himself in a good spot to play tramp and Chernobyls. Then he has so many threats on the board that he's just going to overwhelm you. He's going to quest for 9, and the next turn he's got lethal. Mm-hmm. So a little different from your traditional play cards turn them sideways.
Mm.
Leaving your guys back until you can tramp for basically free, I think is like pretty sweet in Churna Dogs as like a play pattern. I always like it when there's a little bit of nuance to the decks.
So it comes down to how do you disrupt that, right? And there's a lot of big body characters, right? They're mostly 4 willpower characters with your Nalas, Johns, and Daisies. So does purple still have enough 4 willpower answers?
So this is super complicated. So
We can get back to it and focus on the LCC match. I kind of took you away from that a little bit. I wanted to hit back on it. Last week you played against Kurt Spies, the inventor of lands in Magic the Gathering, the deck, which is pretty impressive, actually, if you know anything about Magic the Gathering, and world-class cards teammate to ZAN. Played against him last week. Your testing, I gotta say, since I was there the whole time, kind of not the whole time, but I was there most of the time, mirrored your testing where you played against Spessy, where we got some games in, we got a feel for the archetype. This time we spent a lot more time on altering. Did you feel prepared for your match against Kurt?
Yeah, super prepared. I called up Jeremy, I called up Aaron, Lorcana bro. Thanks to you guys, I was able to get in some good games. They weren't like the most perfect games because, Aaron was playing Amber Steel Songs, Kurt's deck, and he was drawing pretty bad. But so we focused on the alters, and I felt like I had figured out everything I needed to figure out from our games. So I just needed to think about the alters a little bit more and see if I could align with you and Aaron. And, at first we were like, oh, obviously we're going to say all the alters exactly the same. And what we quickly realized was that we were getting 3 different answers every single time. And so us working it out and figuring out whose line was the best line was, I think, key in solidifying the matchup.
And if you're at home and you're working on matchups, you're trying to learn how to play better at Lorcana, I think it's a great exercise. Get 2 of your friends, sit at a table, pull 7 cards up, and then just have a talk about it. There were so many hands where I was like, I would pretty much just keep Tipo here. And Aaron would be like, whoa, but we have Tipo and Atala. And I'm like, I don't care about Grandma Tala that way. And you were like, does it change if you're on the draw? And I'm like, yeah, I'm keeping them all or whatever. Like, I'd be like, I would totally change my answer based on you said that. Because I just wouldn't. I was thinking I was on the play. So when you're like, just change her on the draw, yeah, man, I'd keep that Grandma Tala because it's the best thing. And I don't think that's exactly the cards that we were talking about when we had that conversation. But like, I remember that we had a discussion about whether I keep a Tala or not. And I was like on the, I don't care about it. And then I think Aaron was like, no, I really want to keep it. And then there was a separate discussion where I was pretty locked in. And then you said, does it change the player of the draw? And I was like, oh, absolutely. It changed like 4 cards that I kept or whatever. And you were like, okay, that's pretty interesting. I think it's a great exercise that people can do. If you're wanting to get good testing in, spend some time playing the games and then spend some time altering. Any questions? You look like you have a question.
No, I mean, I'm trying to look back at last week's pod, and we talked about Kurt kind of was able to steer his Amber Steel deck towards DKP last week, right? So he was able to put it in a good spot against Red Blue. Yeah. So going into that matchup, going into the testing, maybe put it in percentages. What do you think his favored position was?
Well, I said before that it was a 60-40 in his favor.
Okay.
And in testing, what I realized was I play Vitalosphere and DKP does not.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Big.
there was a major back and forth where Kurt's holding on to a bunch of criminal minds, and I never ever played a naked Maui shark.
Mhm.
And this weekend I watched a lot of coverage, and I gotta say, I don't even know how to play red blue without Vitalosphere. I don't understand. And then I've kind of always in my trading card game, like pro career, been a little bit of like a ZAN copycat. So because I know how to play the deck the way that ZAN plays it, because that's how I get my testing in or whatever. But you need Vitalosphere. That's really how I feel. I don't understand what the strategy is, but with the Vitalosphere, it's so good because you'll have it in play. It's just hanging, and then they're like, okay, I can't turn anybody sideways. You have 4 cards in your hand, and you're like, what? You don't want to quest? You don't want to get to 7? And they're like, I'm good, bro. That's just nuts.
Yeah. The other aspect was I have a cleaner out to Daisy Duck, right? They go Daisy Duck, I go Bella into Tipo, right? And all of a sudden, I made the Daisy Duck a card advantage card for me, right? They reveal a character on top, and then and they gain 2 lore, but I get the extra card, which is really important, and then I just get rid of it. The other aspect was I was playing brawls, and DK Pay is down to 0 brawls, right? And that's huge because when you play an aerial,
sure.
Yeah, exactly. You play an aerial and you can't deal with it. You know that they can hold New World whenever they want. That's huge. And so let's talk about this brawl situation. Brawl is not really being played in red, purple, blue, red, any red deck, right? Basically, I am the minority in playing brawl right now.
Purple red isn't consensus heavy on brawl at the moment.
Purple Red has a lot of answers to Diablo, and that's traditionally what they're reaching for brawls for, if that makes sense.
I always get brawled on turn 3 when I'm playing Diablo.
Now that we're Peter Pan, Shadowfinder, Evasive, Tribal, it's not as necessary. It's not the most important thing going on anymore. We also have Elsa and Genie. We just, over the course of the last 3 sets, got so many different answers to that little green bird that we don't necessarily need brawls. And brawls can sometimes be the worst card in your deck. If you brawl a Genie, that is good because you're not going to lose, but it's also bad because they drew a card and you're down a card. Yep. So that's what I have to say about brawl.
And this is what I was trying to bring it to is nobody's playing brawl. So if you're playing Turn a Dog, how do you get rid of stuff that doesn't turn sideways?
You get to look at it. You just have to look at them
outside of a wrath.
Yeah. Exactly. And so that's the whole issue. That is the entirety of the issue. It's people don't respect certain decks. And so this deck that wouldn't have won in a million years before Hiram existed because you needed Brawl for Hiram is now winning tournament.
You can let his card sit there for 5 turns. Yeah.
Yep.
And so looking forward, next week you are playing the LCC against Artifacts, basically the Jack Fenton of Lorcana. How are you feeling?
How am I feeling? Artifacts is pet deck. Green purple.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And green purple's back.
How similar do you expect it to be to the finals match against Mo? His deck is pretty similar?
They're very similar decks. I think Moyen built a version of green purple that is good against the mirror match. All right, and so basically those are my last 2 opponents left. So I will only be playing green purple for the rest of the tournament if I get to continue to play the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 2 matches left. So top 3 right now. If I beat Artifacts, then I get to play Moyen in the finals. So it comes down to me solving one matchup. If I'm able to solve this matchup, then it's looking pretty good. If I'm not able to solve this matchup, I will probably lose this round, right? So, I feel like it's a toss-up. I feel like I have the tools. I'm really happy that I'm playing Bell.
Yeah.
So I'm playing Bell. I'm playing Brawl. Those I think are 2 really important cards, right? I'm able to deal with Genie. And, I'm just going to put this out there. Don't cut your brawls. People love to cut brawls. Don't cut all of them. Play some number. I'm playing 3. That's not 4. I'm playing 3.
You heard it here first, folks. Zan's playing 4 brawls.
No, I'm not. Just 3.
Just not.
So Brawl MVP of your match, Pirate's Life?
No, the MVP of the match was always Vitalis Fair.
Okay.
Always.
One really interesting thing during coverage this weekend was Dan, the guy who was commentating next to JDZ Quest, sort of brought out and highlighted that you see some of these quote unquote Lorcana pros, kind of like the top players in the game right now. Like who else was at the Llama? It was Mo Shamblin. You had ZAN. A lot of Worlds competitors, I guess I'm really safe calling them, are out in these weekends playing in these sort of smaller, not official kind of, I'm calling them like guerrilla tournaments. And then you have a couple who are staying home. R&B didn't go out this weekend. We had Luke Wonderland. He didn't go out this weekend. And Dan saying, if you're not going out, you're not playing in these. Then like how are you going to be ready to play in Worlds? You're not keeping the knife sharp. Does that factor into why you played the Llama, or did you mostly just play the Llama to showcase that you broke the format and going out and winning the tournament is the way to prove it?
It's a combination.
Yeah,
it's always a combination, right? Like life would be so easy if every decision was just one factor.
Sure, but you always make me do this. Can you put it into a percentage?
How much of a percentage it gives me in Worlds?
No. How much of a percentage was it that you wanted to keep the knife sharp versus you wanted to show off your broken deck? 50-50, 60-30, 120?
70-30.
70-30. And that adds up to 100, which is way better than the examples I gave earlier.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at the weekend, though, if you could say all you had to do was fly to Arkansas to go into a final against another Worlds qualified player, I think that's worth it, right? That's crucial reps for
You're exactly
Worlds.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you guys are right. Yeah. I mean, momentum is a huge thing. If you're not going to these tournaments, you are like, we experienced this in Magic, right? When we were playing Magic, there was this thing called the Players' Championship. And basically, it was a culmination of points that you accumulated from DLC style events called Opens. And then these IQs that happened in shops, kind of like set championships. And so Jeremy and I would drive to Middle Earth to play in these.
Yeah, we played in some.
You played at Open at the Los Lorient?
We played in some dumb tournaments. We drove to Kentucky from North Carolina on Easter Sunday for an IQ, which was basically a less important set championships.
Yep.
And we both 0-2 dropped.
Oof.
But we won one the day before.
We did win an IQ the day before. But that was the way home was very much like, all right.
Was there a cap? Like in Pokemon, you can only win so many of these size tournaments, and you hit your like max CP.
No, this format was like notoriously designed to reward people who are willing to just kind of throw away mental health and life and everything. The grinders. So no, we went to every weekend. If we didn't go play in like an Open, which was like a big tournament,
20K,
a big 20K tournament, then we would go play in IQs. And if and we didn't miss a weekend that season, and we were both in the Players' Championship, which only was the top 16 players were allowed to play. Notably, there were a lot of players that were like, you guys are wasting your time. IQ's only worth like 1 or 2 points. For context, if you won an Open, you got like 20 points. If you like top 32 to an Open, you got like 10 points, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
IQ's only worth 1 or 2 points or whatever. And a lot of those players were not in the Players' Championship. Me and Zan were. And it was like, yeah, well, it's also nice to go get 1 or 2 points on your off weekends. But a big part of it was, like Zan said, keeping the knife sharp. We went and played it. I played in a tournament every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week, right? There's something to be said for that. When we get into DLC Season 2, am I going to look back and say, oh gosh, I wish I would have played more of those Charlie's and SSG tournaments? Or am I going to say, I'm glad I had those double winning ends or double loss for my winning ends and got through that experience, and it helps me in a DLC. I'm going to be happy about it.
Most people do not see it that way. Unfortunately, they don't see it that way. They will blame it on everything else. And so, I mean, that reflects in your life as a whole. And so, yeah, I mean, go play in these tournaments. They certainly, build you up like the way that's going to allow you to be the player that top 4 is that DLC or wins the DLC and plays in Worlds or plays in Continentals, whatever your goal is, you can't get there without playing in person at these events. You just can't.
But if you can't go out to every event and you're not qualified for Worlds, what I have for you is once they announce the Worlds format, I'm going to design a fantasy draft format where people can draft their favorite players who are playing in Worlds. I'm going to design a system whereby they get a certain number of points for whatever it is that they do based on whatever the format is. And it's inspired by you guys because you guys do this with Survivor.
Oh yeah.
And
I
Ryan
don't want to talk about last week.
Ryan was talking to me a little bit about you guys' fantasy Survivor format, and it is stupid. It's like bad.
For sure.
You guys all draft players one at a time.
We know that.
We know that 100%.
We know that.
But you got to remember, this is me, Zan, and our wives sitting in the living room.
That
right?
means that you can't play a fun format or a smart
no.
We
format?
can't overcomplicate this format or they are lost. If you knew how bought in our wives are to this format, you would change your entire team.
Yeah, I promise.
When we watch Survivor, my wife is glued to the roster of our people, and like something's going wrong. She's like, oh no, the vote's steering towards my guy, or Mahali has only got one girl left. This could be hers.
So let me explain you guys this format to the audience. Basically, Survivor, obviously 17 or so castaways are sticking on an island for however many days. Usually it's like 31, I think, these days. Over time, they're all voted off one by one, and the person that is left remaining, well, it gets down to 3 people, and then the people that they voted off vote for whoever wins. The way that you guys have drafted it, the only thing that matters is the player who drafted the fantasy drafter who drafted the player that wins the entire season.
Whole thing. No participation trophies. We don't do that.
Which we all kind of know instinctually that what should happen, and I know Justice is really going to appreciate this. Shout out to Justice. He's in all my spaces. He's the European, he's the guy that coached DKP. But shout out to Justice. Yeah, he would appreciate this. What should be happening is you assign a point total to every placement.
100%.
With second and third probably having the same point total, and then it kind of descending from there.
And before you finish this statement, our wives have left the building.
Yes, and that was our original take on it, and we decided to simplify it. On purpose.
You guys don't know how to talk to your wives. You got to make a PowerPoint. You got to first place, 15 points. Second place,
we couldn't even decide what the winner gets. You don't understand.
It was a
what's
whole
the winner
thing.
getting you guys' thing?
It's pretty ambiguous, actually. And honestly, way too open-ended. We could have put ourselves in a very dangerous position with our wives. Basically, the winner gets to pick whatever they want as their prize.
Yeah.
Some of them have already been turned in. Some of them are like basically just concepts, and they're not really fully baked out. So, yeah, it's pretty ambiguous.
Whatever they want.
I try to put more concrete.
We're playing for jet skis. What are you guys doing? Anyway, when they announce the Worlds format, I'm going to design a fantasy draft page. I'm going to start a Metafy, put it on there for free. And if you want to draft along fantasy draft for Worlds, then that way you can. And the way to pick draft order is pretty simple. You got to play a Lorcana tournament with your friends. 8 friends, that means you guys play a Lorcana tournament, and then that's your draft order. Boom.
I like it.
I mean, that's the beginning.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's what I'm going to do for Worlds.
Okay, just for a moment.
Nope.
Okay, just for a moment. Jeremy, my best friend right here, got me into Survivor, and we're living in some universe where he doesn't watch Survivor anymore.
I watched seasons 1 through 42. They had all the winners play, and then Tony won, and I was like, I think that it only gets worse from here. I'm like good now. I think I've seen a million hours of Survivor as it came out.
I'm telling you right now, it's good again. There was a moment, I think it was season 43.
Oh, they brought Cochran back?
No.
Oh, so it's bad.
No, those old players are terrible.
Whoa, Cochran's not terrible.
You're just nostalgic. You have to let the next generation come on and prove themselves.
I agree with that actually 100%. My goat is always going to be Boston Rob, but that kind of makes me basic.
Yeah,
You think we could film our casting videos here, Zan?
Oh, yeah, of course.
For us to get on Survivor?
Yeah, we want to get on.
Yeah, we're going to submit.
Yeah, we're going to submit.
Oh, y'all are submitting?
Yeah. You have to.
You have to.
Yeah, if y'all submit, I'll definitely
Can you at least start watching again?
Episode 50, our Survivor casting.
There's our casting. So I've seen a lot of the pitfalls people make because I have friends that cast or themselves or try to get cast pretty religiously. A lot of them try to do like too much high production, make it too grand or whatever, and they seem like way too larger than life. It's a lot for TV. I've heard from some of the casting producers that if you're a little more not subdued, but a little more normal, that's a little more what they're looking for. So I think they're just never going to be looking for me because I'm such a like, it's a hell of a town like guy. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, let's go with ZAN.
You think that I would get in?
I think that you would get in probably over me, or just you've got an interesting thing about you, and I'm just so like I'm too eager. It's like when they hire for people that work on railways, like trains, they don't ever hire like train people because apparently it becomes like too toxic of a work environment. So like if you're interviewing for a position for like Amtrak or whatever, and you're like, I just love trains, they're like, nope. They're looking for somebody who's like, yeah, I need like a job, and this is the job. Otherwise, it gets. And I think that's probably going to be true about me and Survivor.
I think that we can have those speculations once we submit, but before we submit, I think we're our worst enemy.
Yeah,
100%.
No, I don't know what that means, but I agree.
Okay, that is the end of the Survivor segment. What is the next topic?
Oh man. Okay, so this weekend coming up, you two have the SSG's premiere event. This is sort of the SSG's Invitational. This is the Merlin. It's a 20K weekend. We have a 10K on day one, and then we have 2 5Ks, I think, the next day, or maybe it's a 2K and a 5K. But what's really interesting to me is Sunday they have a high roller tournament. Ryan, you're basically the marquee person for a high roller tournament. Talk to me about the high roller.
I snapped the high roll tournament. It sounds incredible.
High roll has your name all over it. What's the high roller?
So I don't know that we know the exact prize payout structure, but it's higher buy-in, right? So $100 plus buy-in for each player. And I imagine the payout's going to be like pretty cutthroat, right? So top 1 or 2 are going to take home prizes in my mind.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah, I feel like that's how we try and steer any Lorcana tournament that we have any sway in. We want the payouts to be towards the higher finishers. So, I mean, we know we're going to be amongst, a bunch of world qualified players, right? So Bivens is definitely coming down. RMB question mark.
I heard he's coming.
Yeah.
He was actually in my space debating it, and he was like, I don't know, I got to find someone to go with. And then I think he figured it out in my space who was going with him. So that was fun.
Cool.
Yeah, so we know it's top competition, and what's better practice than high stakes and top competition.
Yeah, I also think that, this has been an open format, and this is going to be the weekend that says what's going to be on top of it. So we got to figure out what's the best deck. Turn dogs, blue red, green steel, purple steel, Jafar.
I probably played the most Turnidogs out of everybody sitting here because I grounded out that one weekend.
So
really,
why are you not coming back to defend?
Defend what?
Ooh, that is what the viewers want to know.
Oh my god! Well, I've been working at the Ren Fest. I only get to do that like a month out of the year.
This is ridiculous.
They give me money also at the end of all those.
What do
days.
you mean? You win this back to back, and that's way more money than the Ren Fest. And we got a sweet living situation. It's so awesome.
What's the actual name of the city? This place, Margate. The Margate, Florida tournaments are incredible.
Margate, Florida tournaments are incredible. The problem is I can't afford to lose. I got a lot of trips coming up. I got the Star Wars Galactic Championship coming up that I'm like trying to save money for. My car just broke down. I basically can't I can't enter the high roller tournament right now. In my life, it just doesn't make any sense.
That's
it's
not the one.
insane thing.
You're not going to need to play that one because you're going to win the other one.
Also, if you win the other one, you get into the high rollers tournament.
Yeah,
by the way. 100%.
Yeah, come on.
Everybody watching right now, you gotta understand.
Yeah, comment if you want Jeremy to go to this event. Every event I go to, someone comes up to me and is like, "Is that white guy Jeremy?" I'm like, "No."
No, I don't know him. The reverse of that is also very weird, where somebody's like talking to us for like a long time, and they're like, "Oh, you're Jeremy," like to me, and I'm like. So you like don't, they're like, I watch the podcast every week. I'm like, there's no way because you would know like what I sound like or like, who I am. But it's like fine. I don't think that anyone should have to watch the podcast every week to come talk to us. But I think it's weird that they'll be like, I watch podcasts every week, and then halfway through a conversation, be like, oh, you're the co-host.
I feel like you wanted this your whole life, like people to come up and be like, you're Jeremy,
Yeah.
and now that's happening all the time, and you're never there. I'm like so sad. I'm like, oh my god, if Jeremy was here, he would like.
He's like, now that he's there, he just purposely avoids it.
It's like, what is happening?
War never changes.
What universe do we live in? Why are you not there?
I'm getting a lot of fans from the Renfest. People come up to me and they're like, "You were amazing."
All my teammates are Logan. I was talking to Logan today, and Logan was like, "I miss Jeremy," and I was like,
"What? I like Logan. Okay, I didn't know he was missing me. That's wild.
Yeah,
Logan.
You guys are bros.
Yeah, okay, great.
You gotta come out if for real. Comment if you want Jeremy to come to these tournaments. I don't know what's going on. Renfest or Lorcana. It's not close.
I work at the Renfest. I flex a muscle I never get to. I get to insult people as they walk by. Yesterday, I told a guy that he looked like a tour guide for the inside of a Yeti cooler.
Don't you insult them when you beat them at Lorcana?
I mean, that's nuts. I'm accessing some really nuts parts of my brains doing this.
That's cool. That means you must be cracked at Lorcana right now.
I think that so first of all, I always had one of the strongest mental games in the game. You can ask R&B because I dominated him mentally in Dallas for the top 64. And it's an unorthodox mental game. It's a talk game for sure. It's a talk game, and it's weird. But I think that right now I'm probably a total menace to play against. I remember the last time I walked into the room and it was Jonathan Williams. He was like, "I thought it would be ZAN." I was like, "Yeah, you're gonna wish it was ZAN." I'm giving you the full treatment. You're gonna get the full Jeremy. Actually,
oh, don't
that's
say that. Thing. He couldn't have said anything.
He's
worse.
Probably gonna be there this weekend, and where
you just walk in and he starts shaking.
Where are you gonna be? How are you not gonna come back to defend your title?
Oh my god! What do you mean my title? They've never had the Merlin before. By the way, Merlin, name of my cat that died a while ago.
So you gotta be there for your cat.
He reincarnated as a Lorcana tournament. What is that?
Okay, I might not be able to persuade Jeremy, but the people can.
People get what they want.
That's pretty much all we have. We have other new. We can get us some other stuff. Elestrals finally sent us both our influencer boxes, so we're probably gonna have some Elestrals content. But right now, I don't have anything to say about any of that.
Yeah, we're gonna test it out. Apparently, it's like a mix between Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. Excited to try it out, but nothing on that.
Nothing much to say about that yet, except for keep an eye out. And then also, I guess you could let us know if you're in the comments, like what you want to see. I think a game review from us would be really good. I think we're extremely qualified to review card games.
Yeah.
Maybe the two most qualified people that I can think of.
Yeah.
Maybe Mark Rosewater, but not really. That guy's super biased in one direction. Ryan Miller?
No.
No? Do you think we're more qualified than Ryan Miller to review card games?
No. Of course not.
Oh, okay. All right. Never mind. I don't want to talk about him anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to the Lorcana announcement on Tuesday. We're not really going to get into exactly what's going on with it, but I know I'm excited to hear from him.
So I'll say that a lot of speculation happened on my space, which is a really good place to do that because it's a lot more loose of a format. I feel like people can just come on and say what they want to say. So if you really want to get into me, like speculating on the announcement, we talked about it a lot on my space.
And they're recorded now, so you can.
And they're recorded now. You can go back and look at them, and then also, or at least we talked about just announcements and what we're hearing. Maybe the thing wasn't even announced yet, but we just talked about like what we've been hearing from Ravensburger in the space. My optimism is pretty low. Obviously, I'm hoping for things that I've been advocating for a really long time. Set rotation is like the big one, and a lot of people on X are speculating about a set rotation. I've said on X, and I'll stand by this, that if they just announce that there will be a rotation and when it will be, then that would shatter my expectations. My expectations are on the ground for this announcement on Tuesday.
Only go up from there. So that's the best way to look at it.
I mean, I guess so. And that's just like where I'm at with Ravensburger. But on the flip side, the community has been carrying these tournaments. I mean, Zan, you just went to the Lucky Llama. Obviously, not a thing that Ravensburger put on, something that a store. And like, I mean, how was it in terms of tournament? Was it like a good room? Was it cool? Did you feel like it was big?
I would definitely go back. And
wow.
They had such a good time, and they ran it so well, and the community's response was so good that they just announced an 8K.
Amazing. I mean, I love these. I'm calling them guerrilla tournaments, where sort of the community's kind of taken the game into its own hands and really like sort of evolved it into the thing that it is. You won a commemorative playmat, right?
I did,
and I would hold on to it if I were you, because that's going to be this is going to be a unique period in the game's history, because I think that if Ravensburger becomes more communicative and more planning out tournaments ahead, I don't think another summer's going to go by where there are no Ravensburger tournaments. I think this is probably going to be the last summer where it was really on the community to keep the game alive, and they did it. So I think pretty cool that you got a commemorative playmat from the Lucky Llama.
No, I mean, yeah, I completely agree. It was awesome. It was an awesome event, and what I'm seeing is like so much more from the community than I had ever expected. PPG just announced a Texas-based tournament.
Yeah,
it's a 15K, which puts it at the top of the list for having the biggest Lorcana tournament.
Basically an open. I mean, we're getting really close from the old days.
And we're doing this in 2 years of the game's release. That is, it took Magic like 2 decades.
Ryan, this is your first TCG that you took really seriously. What do you think about the Guerrilla tournaments? I mean, are you having fun going to these things?
Yeah, no, I love everything about it. I mean, like I said last week, it takes me back to the early days of Lorcana where we were, traveling 3 hours to go to a 1K. I mean, we're pretty fortunate to live in Atlanta. We have CCS right in our back pocket, right? So we get really big tournaments, no travel cost to us. So if you're talking about, best places to live for Lorcana tournaments or to be a Lorcana pro, this is probably it. But yeah, I mean, we've been traveling all over now, so I've really enjoyed it, honestly. And I think that's, you're pretty spot on with this may be the last summer that it looks like this. So
I think that's cool. I think it's a unique time in the game's history. So if you win, something like a playmat from a local game store that has its own little graphic design, it may seem silly, it may seem small, but in 3 years, it's possible that we're like, those were the good old days, like when you could just go to Miami and play in a tournament. We didn't have to fly to, Japan or whatever to go play in our Lorcana tournament, and everything else dies. The thing is that once Ravensburger takes over, all these other things are going to maybe not die out, but die down a little bit. The hype room is going to be a little. I think that if there are DLCs going on monthly, then the Merlin is not necessarily an event that people are going to care as much as they do right now.
I think it's the opposite.
Whoa!
I mean,
hot take. Why? What?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's the opposite because I think that these events become more important. I think that people need training grounds in order to level up, and these tournaments are, while these bigger tournaments get built out properly, not everybody can also travel to Europe to go to some of these DLCs, right? And so what I think is going to happen is these tournaments are going to take the place of DLCs when they're happening in other places. And so, they're going to be vital in order to improve at the game. This also leads into another thing that I want to talk about, which is what is the pathway to getting to our level, right? Oftentimes people come up to me, they always ask me the same question. They're like, I can't afford to go to DLCs, and I could only go to like one, and I didn't do well, and now I'm out of funds. And so I definitely want to dive into that, but I'm going to let you answer the question first.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of went in that direction a little bit, but I guess what stuck with me when you said, we're at a 15K in July that PPG's putting on, and you said it'd been 2 decades before Magic got to that point. And it made me stop and think, just the atmosphere around card games right now, it's kind of ripe for a card game to do this, right? Especially one like Lorcana that has such a giant IP behind it, right? It just seems like there's, I don't know, it gives me hope for the future, right? Like this game, should Ravensburger get it right in the next 2 years, could just go absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be a moment where we go to a card store and that card store is nothing but Lorcana. I think this Lorcana is going to kick even Pokemon's butt. I don't think it's even going to be close.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a future where that's the reality, right? I mean, especially looking back at some of these Continentals at Disneyland, Disney World, right? If they position this thing right, it can just be absolutely huge, right? I mean, it's Disney World, right? Come on.
I agree.
I mean, it's hard to imagine. We can definitely look back at this podcast, right? 10 years down the road and look, okay, well, these idiots, they were so far off. It's never going to be as big as Pokemon, but if it's done correctly, it absolutely can be.
The problem is I am rooting for Disney Lorcana. I'm obviously a hugely invested player. I just am so not confident from what I've seen so far that the company is like agile enough to do it. Because I think that like if me and Zam were running the company, then I would agree that this is one day going to be bigger than Pokemon, because we would right now be doing all these wonderful things and having all these announcements for the players, and we like know how to do it. And when Ravensburger, what I'm seeing is I'm just like, there's no way that the correct move right now. Well, the problem is that they're hamstrung by their license a little bit, as insofar as if Disney put their full-throated support behind Lorcana, I believe that you guys are completely correct.
Yeah, that's what it would take, right?
What we've seen is Ravensburger is waiting for Disney to get back to them, which is, how long can that go on? I mean, we're in the digital age. Elestral's the game that we talked about. They got a Steam client coming out soon. They're in beta right now.
That client doesn't matter.
You don't think an online client would help Disney Lorcana?
Of course it would, but it helps a like a train that's already running.
Yeah.
Right? An online client doesn't help a train that didn't even start.
Right, but you, before we got into Lorcana, you said that a card game, in order to...
The pillars of the card game.
The pillars of the card game. In order for a card game to succeed, it needs a couple of things, and here are two of them. One is an online client, and two is a good IP.
Yep.
Okay, so...
Lorcana has an online client. And it has an IP.
I would almost disagree with the first thing that you said.
That's not true. I mean, I'm saying the game is way more accessible to majority of people. You would argue that Vibes has more accessibility, and it doesn't, because you have to pay for the cards.
Yeah, I think Vibes actually has a really bad card availability issue. Now that I've like really gotten into it, I'm super invested. I've put in almost as much time as anyone else. I'm in the top 100 players or whatever, and I don't have all the cards for any but one deck. That being said, this week is their like Illusion Play Bonanza, where you can play any deck. So if you get Vibes right now, you can play any deck, Ryan, just so you know, and that's going on for the rest of this week.
Yeah, that was my problem. I downloaded the client. I played, 3-4 games of Vibes
With starter decks.
And I'm like, well, I can barely get any more cards. I'm just done.
You're done. Yeah. Well, now you could play, whatever you wanted the next week. It's like not bad, but they have a huge card availability.
Online client is important, but the IP is the most important thing, because basically you have to think that you have to be able to jump other card games. You cannot jump another card game's position without the IP, right? The thing that Magic didn't have was an IP, but the game was so good and so innovative, so ahead of its time, that it was able to last and build the foundation that proved everybody else wrong. But then when an IP came in, Blizzard, Hearthstone, it quickly took a huge market cap, like a huge position in the market away from Magic, and forced Magic to build an online client. And so Lorcana is like focused on the board game community side, because Ravensburger is a board game company first. And so I think that they're playing to their strengths. And by the time the online client comes out, it will be better than ever. I think that we are just looking at it from this moment and how we feel about it personally. And we're like, to be honest, like when you work in corporate, you start to realize that everything moves glacially slow, and what we're actually witnessing in Disney and Ravensburger's relationship is stuff that's moving way faster than other corporations, right? Like I just like, yes, it feels bad that we don't have a lot of information right now, but like take a step back and look at it and compare it to all the other card games. They're doing it way better. They're doing it so much better that when we see that, when we're sitting here exactly 1 year from now, we're going to be like, this is the best card game ever, and we're just complaining about small stuff.
Great. I mean, I'm super ready for that. I obviously am never going to be a hater when things are going well for Lorcana. Like I said, I'm on Team Lorcana. I actually am the one that got you into Lorcana, so let's not get confused here about who the real Lorcana stan is, because it's me.
You have to play that role on this podcast, right? Like, it would just be a boring conversation if somebody didn't play that role. So,
well, and there's lots of players that are echoing my sentiments, right? Like, we're not hearing enough from Ravensburger. We should have had a world announcement. We don't know when the DLCs are going to be, which, by the way, I think it's totally fair that I blocked out this amount of time to work for the Ren Fest that's in town. They say I'm a prodigy at it, by the way, Zan. So I bet that burns you up, that I'm better at it than you.
Dude, I'm always happy for you, bro.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. Well, anyway, I think that's it for our podcast. We're going to end it off right there. My name is Jeremy Bertaglioni. You can find me every Monday morning at 8:30 on Spaces on X. We had DKP jump in this week, and he talked all about his list, his performance, what he's going to play in all the set championships, and before then, what he's going to play. So, just a really great place to pop in. And my goal for it is you can join in and listen on a conversation that are the top Lorcana players talking about what the weekend. That's my goal for the space. I think it's worth listening to, especially, somebody like DKP jumps in, you get a notification on X, probably worth it to jump in and see what he's saying. I always try to bait him into saying silly things and he never ever does, but whatever. Well, I'll get him one of these days. Zan, where can they find you?
You're already here. Thanks for tuning in. And Ryan?
Yep. So Ryan Walker, I'm on Twitter at ATL Ryan Walk. Looking forward to the tournament this weekend. If you're in Margate, Florida at the SSG tournament, come say hi. Always fun to meet new people.
And we'll see Jeremy there too. Bye.
Bye.